Decibel Audio, and we're visiting with Steve. Decibel is one of my favorite places. You can buy, sell, or trade gear. So you can walk in here and buy a fantastic vintage system, component system, or our favorite, a wireless audio system. And we were going to ask Steve about some of the latest developments in Wi-Fi wireless active systems.
Yeah, sure. And thank you for having me. But we're, like you said, we're at Decibel Audio. We're a store that's been in the Wicker Park neighborhood here for about the last 14 years or so. We've been in this location for 10 years, so we've been around a bit. We've watched the evolution of wireless speakers and wireless speaker technology kind of come to actually be a thing. And so we've been able to kind of cherry pick, and I think that we were talking earlier about the kind of unique business model that we have here that allows us to do what we want and kind of stock what, where we can cherry pick our lines and get stuff that's going to be good.
Welcome back to Rate Your Sound. We're here talking with Steve from Decibel Audio in historic Bucktown. We're going to talk a little bit more about Bluetooth, wireless, Wi-Fi speakers and what their advantages are. You were talking to me over breakfast about what you thought was important in pulling this all together and making it work.
Sure, and I think that one of the most interesting aspects of wireless speaker technology nowadays, at least, is that the speaker manufacturers are really doing an excellent job pairing up the amps that they're putting into these speakers with the speakers themselves. With the cabinets, they're accounting for the space that's taken up by the amps and the heat sinks and everything that goes along with that. You're also seeing more manufacturers like Kef who are putting 2 amps into a single wireless speaker. One for the tweeter, one for the midwoofer, and that really makes a difference as well. You're basically buying an out-of-the-box, pre-assembled, bi-amplified speaker package, and that's something that's come a long way since the beginning of powered speakers.
Thanks, Steve. Welcome back to Rate Your Sound. We're with Steve at Decibel Audio in historic Bucktown. We're talking a little bit about wireless and Bluetooth speakers, and one of the things I was wondering about is if you bought, for example, a pair of Kef LS50s, how are they for living room, film, gaming, my vinyl turntable, CD player?
Sure, and that's what really is starting to separate a lot of the wireless speaker options and offerings that we see nowadays. Is you look at something like the wireless LS50s, and they offer, actually, even though they are wireless, they offer really a plethora of connectivity options. Whether it's digital inputs via optical or coax, or doing direct streaming with Bluetooth, USB connectivity, Wi-Fi. A lot of these companies are hooking up with companies like Shopify or Spotify, hooking up with Deezer, hooking up with Tidal, to offer that direct connectivity right to the speaker itself, and that's pretty powerful. So it does allow you to kind of purchase the speaker system, and then it's a little future-proof in that regard. You can kind of adapt it to whatever environment you kind of need to, and so they do work great as a living room system. They work great to hook your TV into, and that's the beauty of these is the connectivity and the adaptability.
Thanks, Steve. So we're here in Bucktown today visiting Decibel Audio, one of the best places to buy, sell, or trade systems, and also one of the best places to look for wireless audio systems. It seems to me that the key component these days is almost the control amp. So when you buy a pair of Kefs or you buy Phantom DVLAs,
Sure.
What's your take on all these control amps and then the associated music amps? Is it confusing?
I think what I've noticed is that a lot of consumers are ready to adopt or understand going into it that there's going to be some kind of remote, there's going to be some kind of control center that they'll have to adapt to, at least in some sense. And companies like Sonos, DVLA with their Phantom system, and then Kef with the wireless LS50s, they've really done a nice job at making that sort of app, that sort of remote control sort of thing, very approachable. you know, in a lot of ways, it's simpler than the remote that controls a lot of TVs right now. You just pick your source and pick what you want to listen to, and, you know, at least with Sonos, that's all there is to it. It just plays.
And the other advantage is it's a touch device.
Exactly. So it's, you know, it allows that user interface to be continuously adapted to suit the market demand and what people are looking for and what people find comfortable to use at home. You know, Name is doing that right now as well with their Muso system, and they're just kind of starting to jump into that. But I think we're seeing more and more that almost every higher end audio manufacturer is getting into the wireless scene at least a little bit, and they're all starting to offer these kind of dedicated control apps, you know, right through your Samsung or your iPhone.
Thanks. Hi, welcome back to Rate Your Sound. We're in historic Bucktown at Decibel Audio talking to Steve, and I wanted to ask him about Sonos systems, particularly pairing or making a stereo pair out of Sonos Play 5. And we were wondering, is that audiophile quality, is that high end? How good is that system?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you asked that, because I think what separates pairing these Sonos pieces together, specifically with the Play 5s, is I tell people all the time when they come in to look at Sonos that there's not a better system, there's not a better pair of speakers, better sounding pair of speakers, much less a better system that I could sell somebody for $1,000 that will sound better than what you get with Sonos.
Easy to set up?
Very easy to set up. You know, everything's very intuitive. It takes a couple of clicks going through your app, you know, in the same way that you could order dinner or get an Uber. You know, you could have a pair of Sonos Play 5s going in a couple of minutes, and that's what separates it, and it really does sound good. It really sounds.
Can you tell us about the tuning system built in?
Yeah, and it's kind of neat because I've used it both in here to tune our Sonos pieces that we show for demo to the store, and I've used it at home as well. For instance, I'll give you an example. I have a Play 1 in my bathroom, and what you're able to do is tell the speaker that you want to adapt it to the room you're in, and it emits a series of test tones, and you know, you kind of take your phone around a little bit like you're saging the place, and what it does is it listens to what the speaker is emitting and then adapts the EQ for that. So, you know, that's pretty powerful in that you can adapt it to some place like a bathroom, as I did, which normally, you know, that's a room that'll have a lot of natural reflection in it, and not necessarily always sound as good as a bedroom.
That's a really good story. I like that.
So it really does allow you to adjust for inconsistencies in the room, and that's pretty powerful.
Thanks. Welcome back. We're here at Decibel Audio talking to Steve about setting up a wireless system. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, again, with the pairing of the Sonos, is it pairing both speakers? Meaning when you set up a stereo pair?
Yeah, so they basically will pair together and form one stereo pair, and that's, you know, a kind of equivalent in a lot of ways to what you would get in a traditional stereo system, where you have, you know, two speakers, left channel and a right channel, that are hooked into a power amp. You essentially get that same the same effect with the Sonos stuff, with the exception that each speaker has an amp built right into it.
Gotcha. Just keep it rolling, Simon. Okay, start it. Okay. Hello, Rate Your Sound here at Decibel Audio in historic Bucktown, and I want to ask Steve one last question. Among the wireless systems, fastest, easiest to get going, somebody wants to do it all themselves, what would be the top 3 systems you'd recommend?
Well, I wholeheartedly recommend Sonos. As far as being a closed platform, something that is just a start to finish solution for people, whether it's integration with an existing 2-channel stereo setup or doing an entire house wirelessly. You know, they really have kind of in some ways thought of everything and given you everything you need to be, you know, successful in doing that the first time around. It's stable, it's easy to set up, and if you do run into issues, I mean, their tech support's pretty crazy, almost to a creepy level. They can take control of your computer and pretty much set it up for you if you need them to. So I would recommend Sonos wholeheartedly, and then, I mean, I think the KEF has shown, not only with their X300s, the previous generation of wireless speaker, but with their wireless LS50 system, it really is a comprehensive, future-proof solution for somebody who's looking to either replace an entire system or add an additional system to their home. And then I would say, for the more casual listener, for somebody who just wants to listen to music and is fine streaming with Bluetooth or keeping an aux cord nearby, the Audio Engine stuff is great. And they offer a lot of different options in terms of wireless powered active speakers that allow you to just very easily, have the sound system in your home.
Thanks, Steve. Back at Decibel Audio in Chicago, we're talking to Steve about wireless audio systems. And I had one last question for Steve. If I bought one of these wireless systems, I'm most interested in the KEF LS50. What do I do with all the components at the house I don't want anymore?
Well, you can always, you can always trade them in.
Where?
You could trade them in right here at Decibel if you want. All we ask is that you shoot us an email or give us a call ahead of time and let us know what you want to trade in, and we'll always make it work. We'll find a way to make something work for you, and we'll get you into what you're looking for.
Thank you. We're back at Decibel Audio visiting with Steve, talking about wireless systems, and I had a question about tubes.
Okay.
You and I both like the warm vinyl sound.
Sure.
How does digital compare, one of these wireless systems?
Oh, well, there's so much that goes into that kind of warmth of analog versus digital. You have people who will tell you that digital sounds very sterile, and maybe that's true. The fact of the matter for me is that digital can be perfect in a way that analog never will be, or never could be. And why I think that's interesting is because I think that we have adapted a certain nostalgia for those imperfections, for the distortion, for the fuzz and the warmth and all of that. And I think that a lot of people associate that with nostalgia and with times gone by, only because you look at the recording formats of the day and these smaller and larger format tapes and a lot of the microphones and the tubes in there and in those preamps, and then to play it back with that sort of system as well, it overall takes on that very kind of warm analog tone. And what I think is most interesting is that to me represents something that sonically can be just as enjoyable as what the clarity and the detail that you get in a digital system, because like I said, a CD is never going to have that surface noise, but
right.
If you've come to associate that bit of surface noise with your favorite albums over the years, then it can be hard to detach from that. But I think there's benefits to each side.
Thanks, Steve. We're in historic Bucktown. We're talking to Steve at Decibel Audio, and we spent a lot of time talking about wireless audio as it relates to building a home music system. But one thing we know about Steve is he has a band, he's a musician, and he's putting out some tracks, and I wanted to let him talk about that for a minute. Steve?
Oh, I do appreciate that. I play in a local band here from Chicago called Wild. It's spelled like Oscar Wilde, though, so you have the E on the end. But we're about to put out a couple of singles here in May, and we'll be on the radio, so you can catch our interview there, and find us on Spotify, iTunes. We're going to be on WZRD on May 22nd to debut our 2 new singles, and then we have a couple of shows coming up soon after that. But you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, all those streaming services, and listen to them through your active LS50s there.
Boy, that sounds great. We'll make sure to let our fans know. Thank you again for your time
today.
It was fantastic.
Appreciate it.